they've been great for me. So, my in-laws, even my in-laws have been pretty good. Because my in-laws, Mike and David and Michelle, have merged into this family really quite well. And I love them for it. Okay. I was going to say something about Shirley, but she's not here tonight.
She's having a bad day.
She's having a bad day, so I'm going to go ahead and say it. Shirley is 96, Peggy's mother. She's 96. And she is determined, doggedly determined. By golly, life's going to have to, death's going to have to sneak up on her. She had a colostomy bag put in February. Man, then if I'd had that, I'd have just given up. She didn't give up. She's looking better, getting around the farm. Drives to Weaverville. Drives to Weaverville from the farm. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Like, whoa. Probably a better driver than I am. So, but don't. Okay. I tell you what, my friends, and many of you are my friends, and I'm so grateful for you. And sometimes I'll call Russell and I say, I need a little Russell time. And we'll go out to dinner and get a little Russell time. So, came to the office this morning. We had a gathering at the office. Great. Had a gathering of the counselors at the office. We started telling stories and kind of catching up with each other. That was really good. Some of them hadn't even seen each other in years. And we got to the office and there was a bouquet of flowers right back there in the back. Beautiful bouquet of flowers. And I said, what's that? They said, you know, the card's on there. One of my best friend and college roommate, Gene Hupsteller, he and his wife sent the flowers for our enjoyment. That's wonderful. So, neighbors, colleagues, too many to name. Many are here in body and spirit. Some are not here because they're not alive, but they're still here. Support staff who kept the center going. Tesla's not here. Tesla's had a tough year. She's had a tough year, so we've had to kind of rally around her. She lost a daughter and lost a husband. And so it's been a tough year for her. Where's Steve? I don't think Steve's here. Have any of you seen if you haven't seen it, you really need to see what the office looks like with the makeover. I mean, he got a complete makeover. And Steve Macklin did it. And he's not here right now, but he was here earlier. Steve busted his butt for over a year, completely undressing that house. Took all the shingles off. I mean, those shingles were 130 years old, 128 at the time. And boy, were they brittle. They were brittle. So Steve and I together decided that house needs to be adorned. That house needs to have the same kind of shingles that were put on it 128 years ago. I can tell you those shingles are a little more expensive. So. But I love this. I said to Steve, I said, I'm not going to have plastic or concrete shingles. I'm going to have real shingles. That house is beautiful now. One of my buddies, Willis, said, he's into a little bit of contractor work. I saw him one time and he says, man, I tell you what, that house of yours stands out like a gold tooth. That's right. So, okay. My teachers, supervisors, mentors, those who introduced me to the complex dynamics of the human drama, and then taught me how to render steadfast love as a healing force. That's where I learned it. And then I learned that healing makes grace happen. And some of you see my sermon, don't know where that came from. My sermon says shit happens. You know what? Grace happens. And that's true. I mean, that's a good theological image. It happens. But grace happens too. And so my wisdom guides through the years, especially Mayhem. I've had wisdom guides for a long time. Many of you know them. Mayhem's my wisdom guide now. And gosh, he is so helpful. If you don't have a wisdom guide, I encourage you to get mine. And the unfortunate thing is I'm not going to be available as your wisdom guide, because I've been carrying that around for 54 years. Okay. You know, sacred spaces are very important to me. And that building is a sacred space, and I'm aware of that. I was waiting on Caleb to come help me move the tree on Tuesday. I just went out and sat in that swing. It was a gorgeous day. I sat there in the swing. And I soaked in the goodness of the building and the swing, and I've got a great swing at home too. So Sabbath Rest Farm has been a sacred space for many of you and for us. And I'm very grateful. The monastery in Metkin is the one that I've gone to most recently. I kind of have a marriage to that monastery. Last time I was there, they invited me to read the scripture. How about that? Somebody's whistling back at me. Oh, I know. Scooter, if you don't turn Scooter off, he'll whistle back after a while. So I turn him off. Okay. Metkin Abbey has been a real, Mayhem and I have been down there together, Guy and I have been down there together, Steve, Cliff and I been down there together, Russell. Anyway, okay, so we've had a bunch of supporters. You know what? The partnership with pastoral counseling is the single most important thing I think I've ever done, because it makes me most proud that we have $1 million that has been used over 23 years to service 24,000 hours of counseling. Wow. And by the way, this didn't work out like I'd planned, but you just, on the last night of our gathering, Rebecca made that for me, and it's got the entire history, 23 years, and some of your names and interesting things about it are on there. And then I tell you what, your stories have been so meaningful to me. I can see somebody, I might not immediately tell you what your name is. I can tell you what your story is pretty quickly. And I can't tell you your whole story. See, I don't take notes. So I just don't do that. And so I don't need that. And when you don't need it, it's amazing how much more you remember. So thank you for being here. I'm not going to have all of you stand, but your presence here is very important to me. Okay, the decision to close PC and GC. was not difficult. Somebody said, wasn't it a difficult decision? Not really. Partially because somebody called me and said, why didn't you sell that place? I said, well, I don't really have anything to sell now. And so it was not hard to do, to go ahead and, because we've got so many good pastoral counselors out of the community, many of them right here in this room that I've trained and been influenced by the center. Okay. And finally, I want to acknowledge and thank Peggy. Peggy has just been wonderful. Occasionally, she gets to be just too sassy. And so Tony, I call Tony when Peggy gets too sassy. Come take this woman away, would you?
I call her when you need to be taken down to Peggy.
Yep. Tony, we owe you, buddy. We owe you. This woman's just something else. She really is. We've been married 53 years, going on 54. And that's a lot of years. I never would have guessed that one. You know, I thought we wouldn't make it 5 years. I wasn't sure I was ready for a 1 year. So it's been 53. But ultimately, what I've discovered about grace is that when you stick with it, stick with the pain and the struggle, and you soak it in a lot of love, soak it in a lot of understanding, soak in a lot of acceptance, it'll turn into something very powerful, which is what grace is. And Kelvin's talked about his story. We all, whether I did the counseling or not, we all in this room know what grace is about. So, and then, would you hand me that?
You want me to hold it or you want to hold it?
Yeah, hold it over here. You hold it. Let me read it. I can't read it. A friend of mine named Darrell Fleming. He was a pastor when I was associate pastor. He was associate pastor when I was minister of youth. Same church in Waco. He wrote this, and it's been on my wall for many years. We do not, any of us, get what we deserve in life. We live not by just deserts, but by sheer grace. And here and there, and now and then, we know it. And when we do, we have been graced. When we do, we who have been graced become gracious givers, grateful creatures of the giver, which is why we're here, to render our lives as compositions of gratitude. And that's why I chose and pushed the committee to choose grace and gratitude. I'm getting tired. I've been at it a while today. Parky doesn't do like I used to be able to do. I can't dance all night anymore. But I got me a new scooter, so we'll see. We might want to have a scooter dance. Russell, where are you, buddy? Thank you for coming.